Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Sara Gottfried. Welcome back to the Health Bridge. I'm here with Dr. Pedram Shojai.
Hello. Hi, Sara. Hi, everybody.
Hey, so I'm excited because we have Jordan Harbinger of The Art of Charm here with us today. Jordan, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
We're excited to have you, and I love what you're doing over at your podcast, The Art of Charm. I have to say, when I was reading your bio, Jordan, the thing that just got me super excited was the fact that you've been kidnapped twice. Can we start with that? Like you're famous for being able to talk yourself out of any situation, and I just want to hear about the kidnappings.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the unhealthiest thing that almost happened to me, right? So the first time I was 20 years old, and I was in Mexico City, so I was staying in this like really crummy area. I was sleeping on a roof. I was just, a dumb kid at that point, and I got picked up by a taxi, and it turned out to be like a fake taxi or something, and the guy took me to this really crummy area of town, and I kept trying to persuade him to pull over and leave me, take me back, whatever, and he wouldn't, and then there was a physical altercation at one point, and it really taught me to, which I obviously prevailed, and it taught me to trust my gut in more ways than one. And I just mean in terms of like looking at that, it's the type of incident you replay in your head 1,000 times. And I realized, I knew much, much, much earlier in that event what was going to happen or not going to happen. And yet I started rationalizing, this isn't going to happen. And then I found out that a lot of crime victims do that. They're really good at convincing themselves like, oh, this isn't really happening. And the more I learned about that stuff, the more I realized, wait a second, that's the difference between people who live and die are people who don't rationalize themselves to death in a situation like that. And then I thought about it in business contexts and things like that. And we even do that with our health, I only smoke 5 cigarettes a day, or I only eat, 3,000 calories. It's not like those really fat people. I'm fine. Or, I don't have to work out. I walk to work. Stuff like that. We do that to ourselves constantly, and it kills us, literally, sometimes quicker than others. In my case, could have been really quick, or hopefully would have been. I don't know. And then the second time, right, I don't know. The second time, is a little more involved, and I tell these stories like the hour-long version in my show at one point, and it was Serbia. It was a country called Serbia in the former Yugoslavia, and they have a state security bureau, and they decided that I was a spy. And so they took me and my friend, and they took us, and they like kidnapped us for a period of time, and like beat us up and burned us with stuff. It's not really the coolest story for your show probably, but it was pretty intense, and made the front page of their newspaper and stuff like that, and was like a diplomatic thing for a minute, and it was just kind of a really crappy situation. But that I was fine at the end of it all because partially because I was able to get them to trust me a little bit and to like me a little bit, and that gave me an opportunity with my friend to later on escape, and that was what gave us the opportunity to do that. And it was the reason that they kind of didn't know what to do with us for a while that created that opportunity. And later on, we actually saw those guys later on, and they were like, yeah, we just kind of we felt bad and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, wow, this stuff saved my life. And that was even then in the beginning of The Art of Charm and not really like in the thick of it all.
Okay.
So,
wow. So are we talking about the Jedi mind trick here? I mean, so
it.
Yeah. So talk to me, a guy who, just showed up here, and, you and Sara, I think, have had a little bit more history. I'm just new to the party, and I'm meeting her friend Jordan, who has already got my interest intrigued here, right? What is The Art of Charm?
So what The Art of Charm does is essentially we've got our podcast, so there's that element, which I recommend people check out. If you like the Health Bridge, you'll love The Art of Charm or whatever. And then
nice work. He just did it right now.
Yeah. And then we have a school in Los Angeles, and guys come in from all over the world to learn social skills. And I don't mean like, here's which fork to use. And I also don't mean like guys who are just hopeless, in every area of I mean, our clients are everyone from engineers who think, okay, I code a lot, and my next level for my career / personal life is learning how to connect with people, network like a pro, follow up, generate good relationships with coworkers. And then there's other guys that come in and go, hey, listen, I've been single for a while. I know I'm not doing something correct because I'm the common denominator here, and I want to get good at this stuff so I can connect well. And 30% of our clients are married and in relationships, and they're like, I just don't know what to do. My relationship with my wife, I want to improve this to the max, take these connection skills up 10 notches. Where do I go? I can't just keep reading books. They're not doing anything. And then we have our sort of like weird 1% military intelligence, special forces guys that come in and they're like, yes, I work at this random office doing a desk job, and I need to learn how to do this in weird foreign places where I don't speak the language. And it's like, yeah, okay, desk job guy from the Mossad, you can come in and learn our skill set that you will just, And so we get those guys in like Green Berets and Navy SEALs and stuff like that. And we get a lot of those Army intelligence folks and things like that because this is what they do. They need to be able to generate trust, get people to like and trust them, share information. Their connections are their lifeblood. And in a military unit, it's very similar. Those people's connections are, if you're trying to get somebody to risk their life for and with you, they go through a lot of training to do that, but it doesn't hurt to have yet another tool in the tool belt. Those guys are obsessed with knowing everything, having every possible advantage. And so guys who are in like either a military, special forces, intelligence position, or an elite coder that works for Google, Apple, Microsoft, whatever, or just somebody who wants to be the best at whatever they do, those are the guys that we see at the Art of Charm because they recognize a 1% edge, a 5% edge is something that is essentially priceless over time, and they'll do anything to get it, including fly out to LA and stay with us for a week.
Okay, Jordan, this is totally cool. And I have to say, you may not have noticed, but I'm not a Navy SEAL. I'm not Special Forces, but I've dated one. And
that's basically the same thing.
That's a longer conversation. But I want to ask you about this concept that you teach, to get people to trust you, because I imagine that this is one of those, in the words of the famous Pedram Shojai, this is one of those, Jedi Knight mind tricks that really could serve you in other places in your life. So could you maybe get a little detailed about this? For those of us who are not Navy SEALs, how do we do it? How do we start to put this into place?
So a lot of it comes down to nonverbal communication, things like that, because the thing is, and you've probably heard this a million times, but just in case, your body has a hard time lying, but obviously people are pretty good at telling lies with their mouth and things like that. So with our language, so what we've evolved to be, and correct me if I'm stepping on any medical toes here, but we've evolved to read nonverbal communication and trust it much more than what people say. And I think females are especially good at this because they've evolved over however many years to have a safety concern, whereas us guys are just kind of like, I got a pretty good BS detector that used car salesman's lying, whereas women are like, I feel like this guy is creepy, and that's this very vague, nebulous decision that gets made somewhere in like the annex of your brain in the lower left part, and it just makes you go, I don't know, I'm leaving the situation, I don't want to see this person anymore. And other people go, well, he looks so great on paper, and he's a doctor, and he smiles, and he's nice, and he's friendly, and you're like, nah, don't feel safe with him, don't feel good about it, not gonna do it, And so we're training that instinct, we're training you to hone that instinct, and we're also training people to project the best version of themselves so that they don't trigger that by mistake, which means that I got to filter out psychopaths, sociopaths, whatever, all day long when guys are signing up for the program, because I've actually interviewed a sociopath, and he was terrifying because he was like, all I'm doing is learning what people respond to and then calibrating myself to that exactly to get what I want, which is all about me. And it's like, wow, that's really creepy and scary, because what those people are doing, and I mean, I guess just the narcissistic psychopaths, not the normal people that just, not everybody who has a mentally ill kind of situation is doing this. But he was basically learning what makes people tick and using that to manipulate people. And that's it all sort of comes down to intent, right? And he was particularly terrifying because I said, so earlier when you laughed at the joke I made, you were just doing that because you know that would be endearing? And he's like, 100%. He's like, I didn't think any of that was funny or anything. He's just, I know when I have to laugh and when I have to smile and all that stuff. And I'm like, terrifying. So what we're doing is teaching people not only how to read body language, read nonverbal communication, generate endearing feelings and things like that, but also doing it in an authentic way that is healthy for you. And that's really tricky because a lot of people find that really tough. They think, I'm not a fun person, so I can't learn this skill set. And it's like, you can, and we'll show you how, but it takes a lot of work, and a lot of people have to make some big changes in order to get there. And so it's not like these are not the droids you're looking for type of thing. It's not like that. You're like, you will trust me. It's not really like that. It's more along the lines of, hey, listen, I know how to get rapport with people, how to connect on an emotional level, even if that person is trying to beat me up right now or trying to figure out. I knew that these guys who had kidnapped me initially, it's really hard to do bad things to people you like if you're not completely bonkers. And these guys were bad people, but I don't think they were like completely off the reservation. So they were like, you guys bombed us, and you're a spy, you're not carrying the proper papers, and we've been watching you and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, all right, so they're thinking that I must be bad, and my other friend is terrified and scared. And so, what would short circuit this process for them? And I'm thinking, all right, yeah, the reason I don't have papers is because I've lived here for a really long time. I really love living in Serbia. It's great. I teach little kids English. I have a lot of Serbian friends. I guess I thought of myself more as Serbian, and I never thought I needed to carry my papers around. And they were like, damn it. And then they were like, well, what's your favorite thing about Serbia? And I was like, what are all Serbians like? Food. They're proud of their national drink. And I was like, well, I love this kind of food. And they're like, oh, my mom makes the best that, sarma. And I'm like, yeah, and I won't lie, I've, had my share of the rakia. And they're like, oh, what kind? The peach kind, the pear kind, the cherry kind? It's like, well, actually, my Serbian grandpa makes this. And they're like, you have a Serbian grandpa? I don't, by the way. But, I was like, this needs to happen. So after a while, they were like, all right, I don't know, we're going to keep watching you, and we don't like your friend. He's got a big mouth. And I was like, yeah, he was getting beat up while they were just chit-chatting with me and like giving me booze. So it was a lot better for me than it was for him. And the reason is because I kept thinking, all right, what do these guys need to hear? What is going to short circuit this process? How am I going to humanize myself? And so we don't necessarily teach anti-kidnapping skills at the Art of Charm, but teaching you how to keep cool under fire, how to generate massive personal awareness, how to look for people's motivation, how to read body language, how to project confident body language, because they were confused. They're like, why aren't you scared? And I was like, well, I haven't done anything wrong, so I don't understand why I would really be in trouble. So obviously this is just a misunderstanding. And they were like, dang, like none of this intimidation stuff that's making us feel powerful and making you feel bad is working. And they're not saying this out loud, but I'm thinking, they want me to be like afraid and upset, and then they can sort of dehumanize this and make this process easier. But since I was like, no, I'm an upstanding citizen, I like it here, why would the police not like me? That really screwed with their mojo. And so teaching people how to read and react in situations like that, we do talk a lot about that at AOC programs and live training and stuff like that. So it can save your life. I didn't expect that to be the case, but mostly people come in for like how to sell themselves for their business or, date more or whatever, but it does apply everywhere. And so we do get our share of people that are interested in that too.
So I've got a question. It seems like if you dealt with this onslaught of this like tidal wave of new kids coming into our world that are completely socially isolated and unable to communicate with other kids and stuck in their text messaging and their gaming and all this kind of stuff. How quickly can you guys kind of intercept and do a pattern interrupt for parents? And I don't know if you guys have looked at this point, but I mean, it just seems like there's a whole generation coming up that needs you, and people are just completely socially unaware and don't know how to interact with people.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, not every kid is hopeless, thankfully, but we do get a lot of parents calling and saying, hey, my son is 14, 15, 16, 17, 21, 31, lives at home, or just graduated, not doing so well, with whatever sort of life thing. And they'll call and say, what can you do? And it's like, all right, if you send them to us, what we do is we get them in here and we make it so fun to interact with people and so interesting to get to know people and figure out people that then they start to do it in their spare time instead of just playing we rock their World of Warcraft, I guess you could say. And so, because here's the thing, social anxiety or the reason people game a ton is because they want that social outlet and they want to text and they want to interact with people. But man, doing it in person is scary, real time, it's scary. If we show them, hey, listen, this is actually more fun than just texting. This is more fun than just living in your online world. They get good at it really fast and then they don't go back. They balance it more. Does that make sense?
It's great. That's great.
It's totally great. Jordan, I want to ask you, you started off with your first kidnapping and you were talking about the rationalizations that crime victims make.
Yeah.
Kind of the fake rationalizations that don't get you out of a tight spot and also can lead to major health issues. Can you talk a little bit about the fake rationalizations versus maybe the more healthy adaptive rationalizations? How do you tell the difference?
Yeah, that's really tough, I think, because that sort of comes down to, and you guys probably know this better than me, it comes down to this sort of gut level reaction. I'm trying to think about how this looks. For example, if I wake up early and I know I'm supposed to go cycling and it's raining, I can go, well, I don't want to cycle in the rain because it's cold and I just really don't feel like it. Oh, there's work I can do. And then I kind of have to go, all right, am I really excited about doing the work? Do I really need to do it? Or am I just being lazy about going out and cycling? And there's kind of your answer right there. And you think, if I had to think of the number one reason I don't want to go cycling, is it because I'm busy or is it because it's freaking cold and raining? And if the answer is it's cold and raining, then I don't want to listen to that rationalization, right? But if I go out and I look outside and it's icy outside, which doesn't happen much in San Francisco, but I grew up in Detroit. If I go out and I look out and it's icy and I go, ooh, I could fall and just bust my you-know-what all over the place, and that's not worth it. I'm going to be out of the game for a while and I can't work. This isn't worth it. I'm going to go inside and maybe do another type of exercise. Now I know I'm not rationalizing because I'm not giving myself an easy way out. It's literally something where I can go and replace it with something equally tough, if not tougher, etc. And I think it comes down to looking at your real motivation. And it's hard to be that honest with yourself because sometimes our patterns are so buried in there. We think, I like being single. It's great. All men are this or all women are this. And it's like, how's that working out for you? And so that's a question that I think you should ask yourself a lot, especially when it comes to dating, relationships, your business, things you do, not making yourself do the hard stuff. If you can ask yourself and honestly answer, how's that working out for you? And the answer's not what you want, then you should probably stop rationalizing your way out of it. If you're 400 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever, and you're overweight, and you go, I can have cheesecake for dessert every day because I'm not like those other people. Really? I mean, what's your ideal outcome? Is it what you have now? Or are you just rationalizing because the other way is harder? Or are you one of those people who you're a professional cheesecake eater and if you don't eat, you're going to lose your edge, right? Like, then you should probably keep doing it. But for most of us, the answers are really clear. We're just so used to lying to ourselves that we've created a habit out of it. So if you're literally at the point where you can't separate fact from fiction in your own mind, then you should probably either find an external source of guidance, like you guys or your wife or whatever, anybody you can ask that will tell you honestly. You should get a therapist, actually, is what you should do, because everybody else around you is probably used to lying to you to uphold everything that you've taught yourself anyway, because that's why they're still in your life. And then you can make those changes. That's why a lot of people get coaches, though, because they'll come to a place like the Art of Charm and they're like, their family goes, you don't need that, you're great. And it's like, yeah, but that's your mom. Do you want to marry your mom? Is your mom your boss? Because if those two things are not the case, then you should probably look at somebody else's input. And a lot of people will go, oh, well, my friends don't say I don't need this. And it's like, great. Are your friends living your life or are they living their own life? Because a lot of times people go, oh, you don't need this. You don't need help with that. Cool. Well, your female friend who said that you don't need this, why aren't you dating her? Oh, oh yeah, you're a great catch for someone else, right?
Okay, Jordan, you're my new favorite Navy SEAL, metaphorical Navy
Okay.
SEAL. I just want to call you out for that. So I want to recap some of these wise things you've shared with us today. Number one, we asked you about the kidnappings, and I love how you kind of made the way that you got out of the bind that you were in into a life lesson for all of us. And you talked first about trust your gut, those fake rationalizations that happened to you when you got kidnapped, and how it kind of led to further problems, and how many of us ignore those fake rationalizations. Number two, you talked about getting people's trust. And I really like this idea, how it comes under this important piece of what your intent is, but you want to really focus on especially the nonverbal communication that happens, because I think that's where, as you said, trust is embedded. And then number three, I love this point about telling the difference between the fake rationalizations versus the ones that really serve you. A lot of them come down to this gut level. Are you being lazy? Are you giving yourself the easy way out? Or are you making a choice that's really empowering for you? So for people who want to learn more about you, can you give us the URL for your website where they can learn more about the Art of Charm?
Sure. I mean, honestly, if you're watching/listening to a podcast right now, just get the free stuff. Just go to the Art of Charm on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever, or you can go to the artofcharmpodcast.com and might as well just get the free stuff. There's no need for us to be like, buy this and then go sign up for that. You know what? Consume the free stuff, the audio content, and try some of the things that we talk about in there. And if it works, then call me and come to LA. If it doesn't work, well, you obviously did it wrong then.
Then you're the outlier.
Yeah, something's wrong with you then.
Yeah, man, yeah. I dig it. I like what you're doing. It's an important service to our community as more and more people are kind of shell-shocked into social isolation and just unable to communicate outside of the little small circles that we had as tribes. And the world's a different place. And now learning how to interact with humans isn't something that was taught in school in a lot of ways. So I'm glad you're doing what you do, and I love the energy you bring. So right on. Thanks for doing it.
I appreciate it, guys. Absolutely.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks for being with us. Okay, everybody, we loved having you today. You can check out healthbridgeshow.com to learn more about our show. Pedram, thanks for being with me, man.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. Thanks, Jordan.